Here are the solutions to your study guide. So the first one says to graph each inequality. So remember, when we're graphing, we want to make sure that we're numbering our number line with at least that number that's on there. So this means I have an open circle. This is saying x is greater than, so that means all the numbers bigger than 3 are going to go to the right. This one says that x is less than or equal to. That or equal to part is when we have a closed circle and it's less than, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the left. The last one says that is just x is less than -2, so this time I'm going to have my open circle again, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the left. Now the next one says that Dean runs at least 7-minute miles. So he can run 7-minute miles, but they are going to be greater than that. So we're going to have x is greater than or equal to 7. You can have at most 3 donuts. So you can have 3 donuts, but you can't have more than that. So you're going to have x is less than 3. The next one, I go to more than 10 Tiger games a year. So x is greater than 10. Now I'm going to go ahead, the next ones are going to ask me to solve. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to solve these. So we're going to solve them just like an equation. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And so I'm going to get that x is less than 11. And so when I go ahead and I graph that, again, I'm going to have an open circle and I'm going to have an arrow to the left. The next one, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, so I get that x is greater than or equal to -10. So when you graph, you're going to, again, we're going to have a closed circle because it's or equal to, and I want greater than, so that's going to go to the right. Number 9, we're going to go ahead, we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Even though that 3 is negative, the number we're multiplying by is not, so we do not need to flip our inequalities. So we have x is greater than -15. We're going to have an open circle and arrow to the right. Next, we're going to go ahead, we're going to divide both sides by 2. I'm going to get that x is less than 16. Open circle, arrow to the left. Next, we're going to go ahead, we are going to add 4 to both sides. So I'm going to get 7x is less than 21. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. So we're going to get that x is less than 3. So when you graph that, you're going to have an open circle and an arrow to the left. The next one, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to need to multiply both sides by -4 because I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. This time, because I'm multiplying by a negative, I need to remember to flip my inequality. And so when I graph that, again, open circle and arrow to the right. Our next one, we're going to go ahead, we are going to distribute. So when I distribute, I'm going to get 6n minus 12 is greater than or equal to 15. I'm running into the next problem, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So I'm going to get that 6n is greater than or equal to 27. If I divide both sides by 6, I'm going to get that n is greater than or equal to, you can leave it as 27/6, or if you wanted to, you could turn it into a mixed number. So you would have, so yeah, you could turn it into a mixed number, sorry. Then we could go ahead and we can plot this. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm just leaving it as an improper fraction. This time I'm going to have a closed circle. Since it's greater, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the right. The next one, I'm going to try to squeeze this in over here. If I distribute, I'm going to get 3x plus 6 is less than 3. I can go ahead and subtract off 6. So we're going to get 3x is less than or equal to negative 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. And so if I do that, we're going to end up with x is less than or equal to negative 1. So I'm going to plot that. It's going to be a closed circle and an arrow to the left. I apologize, you hear Sophie. I'm ignoring her right now. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to subtract off 6x from both sides. I'm going to get negative 12 is less than negative 2. Oops, it's positive 2. Positive 2x. When I divide, again, I don't need to flip the inequality on this one because even though the 12 is negative, the number I'm dividing by is not. So this would be an open circle, and this time it's x is bigger. Remember, the bigger part is by the x. Same idea with the next one. We're going to go ahead and we are going to get our x's and our to one side and our constants to the other. So I'm subtracting off 2x, so I get 10 is less than 5x plus 7. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to subtract off 7. I'm going to get 3 is less than 5x. So when I divide, I'm going to get x is greater than 3/5. So again, open circle and arrow to the right. The next one, when I distribute, I'm going to get negative 2x minus 8 is greater than 6. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I'm going to get negative 2x is greater than 14. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. I'm going to get that x is less than or equal to negative 7. So again, an open circle and an arrow to the left. All right, the next one we're going to go ahead, same thing, we're going to go ahead and we are going to distribute. So we're going to have 3x minus 2 is less than or equal to 6x plus 12. Again, I want to move my variables to one side, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract off 3x. So I'm going to get negative 2 is less than or equal to 3x plus 12. Again, it doesn't matter which side you move them to. So when we subtract them off, we're going to get 3x. I don't know where I want to put this. Let's put it over here. 3x is greater than or equal to negative 14. When you divide both sides by 3, you're going to get that x is greater than or equal to negative 14 thirds. Again, you can leave it as negative 14 thirds, or if you wanted to, you could turn that into 4 2/3. It really doesn't matter. All right, now the ones at the bottom here are a little bit different because these are going to be our and or problems. So if you remember, our and problems are all going to be connected when we go ahead and graph them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 6. I don't want to move the stuff that's on the outside, but I need to remember to apply it to all 3 parts. So if I do that, I'm going to get 12 is less than x, which is less than 14. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this on the number line. I'm going to number both my lines. This is saying x is bigger than 12, but it's less than 14. So they overlap right in there. Same idea here. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to divide everything by 7. So if I do that, I'm going to get negative 2 is less than x, which is less than 3. So again, it's going to be in between 2 and 3. So, oops, this isn't or equal to. So this time I'm going to have a closed circle at 3, an open circle at 2, and they're connected. Biggest thing about these is, again, to make sure that you're putting the numbers in the order they appear on the number line. Otherwise, your lines aren't going to match up properly. So the last one, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add 7 to all 3 parts. And so if I do that, I'm going to get 11 is less than x, which is less than 22. Again, open circles at both, and they're going to be connected. The last one on this side, even though it's an OR problem, doesn't mean you get to pick and choose. You have to solve them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract off 5 from both sides. I'm going to get 3x is less than negative 24. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. I'm going to get that x is less than negative 8. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. We're going to go ahead, we're going to subtract off 7. So I'm going to get 4x is greater than negative 8. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. Again, I don't need to flip it on this one, so I have x is greater than negative 2. So this is an OR problem. Again, negative 8 is smaller than negative 2. This is saying x is bigger than negative 2, and it's less than negative 8. So it's an OR because it can't be both of those things. All right, now the ones on the back, same thing, are going to be some more OR problems. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve these. So I'm going to subtract off 10 from both sides. So I'm going to get that x is less than negative 2. I'm going to do the same thing with this other one over here. I'm going to add 7 to both sides, and it's a little smushy here. So I'm going to get 3x is greater than 12. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So we're going to get that x is greater than 4. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. Negative 2 is smaller than 4, so there it goes. This is saying x is less than negative 2. This is saying x is greater than 4. And then my last one over here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to subtract off 1. So I get negative 5 is less, negative 5x is less than negative 15. I can divide both sides by negative 5. Again, remember when we divide by a negative, we have to flip that inequality. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So I'm going to add 2. So I'm going to get negative 3x is greater than or equal to 9. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And once again, I'm going to have to flip that inequality because I divided by a negative. So when we go to graph this, negative 3 is smaller than positive 3. So this is saying x is less than or equal to, so my closed circle, or x is greater than 3. Now my last one, I'm going to write my inequality. If it's an OR, it must be written as 2 separate. So x is less than 6, or x is greater than or equal to 10. You have to have both, and it has to be written as 2 separate. The next ones, when it's an and, you write them all as 1. So x is going to go in the middle. So x is bigger than negative 1. We kind of write them in the order they appear on the number line. And it's less than 5. And that's the same thing. A number between negative 2 and 7 is going to look the same way. So x is going to be in the middle. And x is bigger than negative 2, but it's less than 7.